Today I really just woke up and decided, you know what? I'm gonna be Ashlyn Ella. Welcome back to part 2 of my Ever After High Retelling. My name is Ainsley from Fairy Tale Vibes. I am glad you're here. So anyway, guys, this video is part 2 of my Ever After High Retelling series, which I have lovingly named Headmaster Grimm is a Hypocrite. In this part of the retelling, we are going to be covering everything that happens from the day after Legacy Day, which actually is the start of this book. This is the second Shannon Hale book, The Unfairest of Them all the way up until True Hearts Day. Correction, we are not covering True Hearts Day because True Hearts Day actually happens in the spring semester, like around Valentine's Day. And right now, what we are covering from Ever After High is still from the fall semester, like right after Legacy Day, which is at the beginning of the fall semester. So in this video, we're actually just covering the Unfairest of Them All, and then some of the other main plot elements that happen in like the webisodes and the diaries, specifically Poppy's transfer to Ever After High, because fun fact, until I researched for this video, I actually did not realize that originally Poppy was not allowed into Ever After High. So if you want to find out the tea about that and why Headmaster Grimm is like a huge hypocrite for not allowing Poppy in, watch this video to the end. And we are going to see a lot of instances of Headmaster Grimm being a hypocrite, which is why I named the video this. So the first thing that happens after Legacy Day is the food fight in the cafeteria. We see a little bit of this food fight in the webisode The Day Ever After, but we see a lot more of a detailed account of it in the second Ever After High book, The Unfairest of Them All. So basically there's a lot of tension and all the students are, eating breakfast in the cafeteria the day after Legacy Day. Like, all the rebels are kind of sitting in one area, all the royals are kind of sitting in one area, and, tension happens. There's a food fight in the show. We do see that Kitty actually started the food fight by, because there was already tension going on. Like, they were already kind of arguing, the royals and the rebels, but then Kitty, threw some fries on each side, and the other side thought the other side threw them, and then they all start fighting. And then, Raven and Apple are trying to be mature because they're kind of each the leaders of both sides, and they're like, no, we don't need to do this. But then sure enough, they also get swept up in the fight. So everybody is fighting, and in the webisode, it kind of cuts off there. But then in the book, we see what happens after that. So Baba Yaga comes down. She sees them all fighting, and she's like, detention. She makes everybody, go to the general villainy classroom and just, sit there. And then soon enough, they get called out of the general villainy classroom, and they all go to the Charmatorium, where Headmaster Grimm has an announcement. So Headmaster Grimm sees all this tension going on between the royals and the rebels, and he's like, okay, well, first of all, he wants to fix the tension, but he also just wants to fix the fact that some of the rebels don't want to follow their stories, right? So he decides we're going to move up the annual tradition of yesterday. So yesterday, not spelled like yesterday, it's spelled like yester, then day, like 2 words, is a tradition where basically the students of Ever After High kind of go and meet with mentors. They are supposed to kind of go and meet with adult fairy tale characters who are similar to them. So typically Apple would go meet with royalty, and then Raven would go and meet with evil people. So the importance of yesterday is to kind of get advice from the main fairy tale characters of yesterday, the people who have already graduated and done their stories from Ever After High. So who do our main characters, Apple and Raven, end up meeting with for their yesterday visits? So Apple decides to go meet with Old King Cole and Empress Buff. Now, the reason she decides this, of course, is because she already has to go kind of meet with royal leaders, because she's going to end up being a royal leader in the future. But specifically, she chooses these royal leaders because she is currently having a crisis because she doesn't know how to lead. As student co-body president, Apple is kind of supposed to lead, and she feels especially responsible for leading the royals. But after the whole fiasco that happened in the cafeteria, Apple just feels like she cannot control the royals. They're out of control. They're arguing with the rebels. She's like, this is crazy. I need advice on how to get these people under control and be a good leader. She goes to Old King Cole. She goes to Empress Buff. She doesn't really like their advice. Empress Buff is kind of just oh, boss people around, tell them what to do. Empress Buff is just ordering her servants around, and Apple's I don't really like that. Apple likes to know the name of her servants, and she also doesn't just want to boss her fellow classmates around. And eventually Apple does kind of go end up talking with her mom as well, and she gets some good advice from her mom. Well, what does our other main character, Raven, do? And I just want to say, arguably, Raven is the main character. She has more of the struggle. But anyway, Raven's current struggle is she going to follow her destiny? Now, Raven has already kind of established that she does not want to follow her destiny. And now she's kind of trying to figure out, how do I go about doing that? How do I go about, going off book? If I'm not going to follow my destiny, what do I need to know? Like, who could give me advice? But obviously, that's not the point of yesterday. The point of yesterday is to get advice on how to follow your destiny. So, like, when they're doing yesterday, they're using, like, an app on their mirror phone. So I need a prop. But anyway, they're using an app on their mirror phone to, like, select who they want to meet with. And Raven's like, who do I want to meet with? And she's thinking, like, who could I get advice from about going off book? And she's like, Little Red Riding Hood. Because at this point, she knows Cerise is half wolf. She knows Little Red is married to the big bad wolf. So she selects Little Red Riding Hood. And then she gets a notification on her mirror phone. And it's like, go to the headmaster's office. And she's like, oh no. And then she gets to the headmaster's office. And Headmaster Grimm is literally like, if you were any other student at this point, Raven, you would be expelled. Like, this is unacceptable. Like, your behavior, just like everything leading up to this, not just like the app thing. But then Raven makes up this whole sob story, and she's like, no, Headmaster Grimm, like, you know, I know you're mad at me for kind of like going off page, but like, I just want to get advice from like Little Red Riding Hood, because, you know, in Little Red Riding Hood's story, like, isn't the lesson not to like wander off the path? Like, I just want to hear about that. And Headmaster Grimm's like,
very well.
Like, Raven literally finessed Headmaster Grimm. And then he's like, okay, you can do that, but you need to also meet with a villain. So then she also has to meet with the Candy Witch. But anyway, then Raven and Cerise go to meet with Little Red Riding Hood, because Raven's like, if I go to meet with Little Red Riding Hood by myself, is she going to want to talk about her secret marriage to the big bad wolf? No. Like, she needs to show that I can be trusted. So they bring Cerise with. And then, so like, it's really sweet. They go there, like, they're getting advice from Little Red. And Little Red is like telling Raven about like how she married the big bad wolf, about how, like, you know, they hid him when he was supposed to be like killed by the huntsman so that he didn't have to die. And then like they kept secretly visiting each other after that. And then, you know, they went to Wonderland. This is so cute. They went to Wonderland and the Mad Hatter married them, and that's how they secretly got married. Oh my gosh. And then, you know, like, the cottage just has like a back door, so like the big bad wolf can like sneak in without like the hoods or the wolves noticing. That's an important thing to mention. So like, where Cerise's mom lives, it's called Hood Hollow, and it's just like in the woods. But in the woods, there's constant drama between the Hoods, which are kind of like a family clan. This is like where Cerise is from. Like, they're not all like closely related, but they're just kind of like a family clan. And then there's also the other clan, which is like the Wolves, which most of them are like werewolves, like how Cerise's dad is. So anyway, there's always tension between the Hoods and the Wolves. So like, not only did like you know, the big bad wolf and Little Red Riding Hood like go off page, no, it's also like low-key a Romeo and Juliet story, because their families have beef. Also, in this moment, we learn that Cerise Hood is distantly, she says, distantly related to Spirit Hood. Like, it's not like a Briar Beauty, Rosabella Beauty situation where they're like first cousins. No, they're distantly related. They're both from like the Hoods, but not like first cousins, if you get what I'm saying. The other thing we learn is like, Raven asks like Little Red Riding Hood, they're like, wait, do the other Hoods like not ask who your husband is? Like, do they not ask who Cerise's father is? And she's like, no, the Hoods are pretty private. I think they just think like Cerise's dad is the huntsman. Which, so do they think like Hunter is Cerise's brother? Anyway, weird lore. But then they end up going outside because they hear like a conflict, and the conflict is basically that like there was this like wolf, and I think he was like a preteen, and he was playing a prank on the Hoods. Like, he was dressing up like a sheep and going with their flock, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is unacceptable, the wolves, and they were like trying to like hurt this kid, like the Hoods. And then Raven's trying to do something about it, and then their anger, like the Hoods' anger, turns from the wolf to Raven. Because then they're like, oh my gosh, you're a witch. Witches are not allowed in Hood Hollow. And they start trying to like dunk Raven in the river and stuff. And then Cerise is like, no. And then Cerise is trying to figure out how to stop them. And then Cerise just ends up revealing to everybody that she's half wolf. Like, all the Hoods. And then there's also some wolves there at that point. And they're like, oh my gosh, we're gonna banish you. Both sides want to banish her. Both the Hoods and the wolves want to banish her. The only person who doesn't want to banish her is her mom. And I'm like, guys, like, literally Cerise has nothing to do with her genetics. Like, if you're gonna do anything like banish Little Red and the Big Bad Wolf, like, what does Cerise have to do with this? Like, these people, oh my gosh. Anyway, so then they decide, you know, whenever like a conflict needs to be settled between the Wolves and the Hoods, they do this thing called the basket run. So in the basket run, basically, it's a competition, and what the competition is all the Hoods who are competing have a basket, and all the Wolves who are competing try to get the basket. So like, a Hood can win if a Hood makes it across the finish line with their basket, and a Wolf can win if they make it across the finish line with like the most baskets. But then, of course, neither the Wolves nor the Hoods want to compete for Cerise. So they're both competing, but neither of them competing for Cerise. Like, they're both competing for the same thing, which is to banish her. The only person who competes for Cerise is Cerise. So Cerise decides, you know what, I'm going to compete. And it's really, like, cool because as half wolf and half Hood, she decides, you know, I'm going to do both sides. So not only is she holding a basket and trying to get across the finish line with her basket, she also starts, like, stealing other baskets. But the other important thing about the basket run is that there's a tower, and technically each team is supposed to have somebody in that tower telling them what to do. So the Hoods have somebody, like, with a megaphone up in the tower being like, run this way, the wolves are coming. And then the wolves have somebody up in the tower with a megaphone telling them what to do. Cerise needs somebody. So guess who that somebody is? It's Raven, but they don't have another megaphone. So then Raven decides to end up texting Cerise, and Cerise does this thing where she, like, puts her phone in her hood and they do, like, voice, like, text to voice, which I didn't even know that was a thing back then. Like, I know text to voice is a thing now, like I have it with my AirPods, but anyway, if only they had AirPods back then, that would have been so much easier. But they do that, and, like, Raven ends up guiding, like, Cerise through the course. Cerise won, she's not banished. Yay. The important thing to note is at this point, the only people who know Cerise is half wolf, half Hood are the people in Hood Hollow still. Like, the rest of Ever After does not know this. Only Raven. But that was a really cool excursion. Oh, yeah, and then Raven also met with the Candy Witch, and honestly, Raven was, like, creeped out, and Raven was like, yeah, Ginger is way sweeter than her mom. Anyway, I also felt like I should get Cerise's doll down at this point, even though I kind of already talked about Cerise's part of the story, but what I do want to say is at this point, I do not know if Headmaster Grimm knows or not who, like, Cerise's dad is. Like, I don't know if he knows that she's part wolf, but part of me has, like, a sneaking suspicion that maybe he does, just because I feel like, you know, he's kind of in control of the stories to some point. Obviously, like, characters still have free will, which is why he is trying to force them to follow their destinies, but I do think he does have some sort of way of, like, knowing things, so I wouldn't be surprised if Headmaster Grimm knows, or at least has noticed, that Cerise is part wolf. So that's just, like, the first thing I want to mention. Like, Headmaster Grimm is always putting so much pressure on these students to follow their destinies, and I feel like he's putting especially pressure on people like Cerise, because Cerise, like, the other rebels, you could say they have a choice to not want to follow their destinies, they have a choice to go off book. Like, the thing that I feel bad for Cerise about is, like, she kind of has no choice but to go off book, because she can't control the fact that she's part wolf. Like, she's gonna have wolf instinct sometimes, and I just feel like if Headmaster Grimm knows this, and he is, like kind of constantly forcing her to hide, like, that is just so annoying, especially because of the fact that Cedar is her roommate. And this is part of the point, like, this is part of me thinking, like, again, her and Cedar are kind of friends, but at the beginning when they were roommates, they did not talk. Like, they are friends at this point in the story, but they were not friends before they were roommates. So part of me, like, secretly wonders if Headmaster Grimm did know Cerise's secret and was like, ha, I'm gonna put her with Cedar, because Cedar is cursed to not lie. Like, Cedar can only tell the truth. So that means that 24/7, Cerise can never let her guard down. She constantly has to wear her hood. She wears her hood to bed. And I just feel like, I'm like, Headmaster Grimm, are you literally bullying a child by making them, like, hide their true identity at all moments? Because I guarantee you, like, if Raven was Cerise's roommate, that would be no problem. Like, Cerise could take off her hood in the dorm, but because her roommate is Cedar, like, the one person at the school who cannot lie, she has to, like, have her guard up at all times. Like, Headmaster Grimm, did you know this? Did you do this on purpose? I need a confrontation. Anyway. Also, I just want to mention, throughout the book, there is kind of this mini plot going on in the background with Briar, and what the mini plot is Briar is involved in something called Extreme Games, which basically, think of it as, like, extreme sports. Like, she's doing crazy stuff like bungee jumping off the beanstalk and, like, all this other stuff. And it just basically adds to kind of, like, her character of how she's a crazy party girl, of how she really likes to live in the moment and do all these crazy things to really live it up, because she knows she's gonna have to sleep for 100 years. And the reason I want to mention this here is because later on in the retelling, we will cover kind of, like, her character development in Throne Coming, but I do think this adds a lot of context to her character and how she acts. So I just wanted to include this here because it is in this book. So anyway, let's get back to the rest of the video. Moving on to the next part of the story, which is also going to make me really mad. So the next big thing that happens, and this also takes place in this book, is kind of like the raid at the Children's Treasury of Fairy Tale Heirlooms. Basically, it's this treasury with a bunch of fairy tale heirlooms, and somehow, like, the door is left open, and then both the royals and rebels start, like, going in there. And again, this is also a continuation of the problem that we saw at the fight in the cafeteria earlier, where basically the royals and rebels were just going at it and could not see eye to eye. So basically, like, the rebels start messing with some of the royal stuff, and then the royals start messing with some of the rebels, like, fairy tale heirlooms, and they both start messing with things. And then everybody's messing with stuff, and Apple and Raven get there. And again, Apple and Raven are kind of seen as, like, the leaders of the Royals and Rebels. So Apple and Raven are trying to defuse it. They're like, guys, like, don't touch all this stuff in the treasury. You're going to mess stuff up, like, even more. Like, no, we're all going to get in trouble with Headmaster Grimm. Like, stop. And then Maddie walks in, and Maddie is crazy. Also, at this point, I should know, earlier I said Raven was the only one who knew that Cerise was a wolf. Well, Maddie also knows because Maddie overheard the narrator. Anyway, I feel like that was an important point to mention. It also shows that Maddie can keep a secret, because a lot of times people think Maddie can't keep secrets, but she actually can, because she never mentioned that, which is part of the reason I do think Maddie secretly knew about Monster High. But we'll get to that when we get to the Dragon Game as part of the retelling, which will probably be, like, I don't know, like in part 5 of the retelling. Anyway, so in the treasury, Maddie gets there and she sees everybody, like, looting all this stuff, messing with all the heirlooms, and she's like, it's Swappersnatchshire! Swappersnatchshire is a Wonderlandian holiday where they all raid the Queen of Hearts castle and steal stuff. So Maddie thinks it's that, so Maddie starts stuffing stuff in her pockets. Well, then Headmaster Grimm gets there, and guess what he sees? He sees Maddie with all these stolen items in her pockets, and below her is this tiny glass unicorn that's cracked. And then Headmaster Grimm freaks out, and he's like, it's the unicorn. I don't know how, like, they spell it weird. They spell it like unicorn. And he starts freaking out. He's like, oh my gosh, you did not crack the unicorn. And he picks it up, and it does crack. And he's like, oh my gosh, that was one of the great glass prisons. And guys, guess what was trapped inside this unicorn? The Jabberwocky. Like from Alice in Wonderland, the Jabberwocky was trapped inside a tiny glass unicorn. And he decides, you know what, Maddie? You broke the unicorn. She did not break it. I just want to say right here, she was just standing there and it was broken. She did not break it. And she also wasn't even trying to raid the place. She was trying to do the Swappersnatchshire, which is like a holiday. Like, that's what she thought was going on. So Maddie's completely innocent. And Headmaster Grimm's like, no, you're getting banished. Another thing that I forgot to mention is for yesterday, since Wonderland, is like under wraps, since they can't go to Wonderland because, you know, the evil queen cursed it, and then Headmaster Grimm shut down all the portals to Wonderland. Maddie decides to go to Neverland because she thinks it is like a sister land to Wonderland because they both end in land. She did not like Neverland. She's allergic to pirates. So Headmaster Grimm decides, you know what? Yeah, you're in trouble. Not only are we going to expel you, we're going to banish you, and you can't go back to Wonderland, so we're going to send you to Neverland because that's the next closest thing. Which, again, it's not like, just because it ends in land doesn't mean it's the next closest thing. And Maddie's like, no, because she's allergic to the pirates. So then Apple and Raven are freaking out. They're like, we cannot let Maddie get banished to Neverland. Raven literally stands up to Headmaster Grimm. And this is the next instance of Headmaster Grimm being a huge hypocrite. Because I'm just going to read you what he says to Raven, because let me tell you guys, the reason he is banishing Maddie, honestly, is not even because he actually thinks Maddie did anything wrong. It is literally to punish Raven. Like I said before, like earlier in the book, he literally said that he would expel Raven, but the only reason he didn't expel Raven is because he needs her for like the Snow White story, because the Snow White story means so much to him. But guess what? Wonderland, like Alice in Wonderland, is not one of the Grimm fairy tales. And you can tell because Headmaster Grimm does not care about any of the characters from Wonderland. He does not really care about what happens to them. He does not care that Wonderland is cursed and they can't follow their destiny. Like, he does not care. And I think that is why he is banishing Maddie. And you're going to see what I mean. And it's literally to punish Raven. It's not even to punish Maddie. So let me read you the quote from this book. So he says, you see what happens when you don't follow your destiny, Miss Queen? Your friends get hurt. Banished even. It's enough to make one reconsider one's previous rash decisions. He stalked closer. If you don't change your mind and make the right choice, I wonder which of your dearest friends will suffer next. Bro, tell me that man was not threatening her. This is like #1 reason I think Headmaster Grimm is like a criminal mastermind. Or I guess not criminal mastermind, because I'm pretty sure he's the one who makes up the rules in Ever After High, but like evil mastermind. Dude! Anyway, he basically mentions the only way, you know, to prove Maddie's innocence would be to do an irrefutable evidence spell, which you need to be like a super high level witch in order to do. So Raven's like, oh my gosh, I cannot do an irrefutable evidence spell. They like ask Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga's like, no, because Baba Yaga's like tied under Headmaster Grimm's finger. Like, of course she's not gonna help them. And then Raven's like, there's one other person we could ask. My mom. But at this point, literally everybody but like Raven, her dad, Headmaster Grimm, Giles Grimm, like literally everybody but them, and also like Baba Yaga, think the Evil Queen's dead. Like, they think Headmaster Grimm killed the Evil Queen. They do not know that she is in one of the other Great Glass prisons. Because remember how I talked about how the Unicorn was one of the Great Glass prisons? Well, the Evil Queen is in another one of those Great Glass prisons, which is the Mirror Prison. They do not know she's in the Mirror Prison. So then Apple's like, Raven, what? Like, your mom's actually alive? Like, I thought, like Raven kind of briefly mentioned it before, and like Apple thought Raven was joking, and Raven's like, yeah. So they decided to talk to Raven's mom. Oh, and I will say, like, they do have a book that like tells them how to do the irrefutable evidence spell, but they can't read it because like you need to be a certain level of witch to read it. So again, like Baba Yaga could have read it, but Baba Yaga wasn't gonna help them, so they need to get the Evil Queen to read like the spell in this book that they can't read. So basically they're like, okay, how are we gonna talk to the Evil Queen? Because Raven is allowed like one visit with her mom per year, and Raven already had that. And obviously like the visit, like if she tried to like bring a secret book to the visit with her mom, like Headmaster Grimm would notice. He'd be like, no, you can't like you can't get your mom to tell you how to do like dark magic through the mirror, like whatever. So instead, Raven and Apple decide, you know what, we're gonna hack into the mirror network and hack into the mirror in the school that connects to the mirror prison. So basically, like, they go to, like, kind of, like, the computer lab where, like, Humphrey and Dexter are, because, like, Humphrey's, like, a computer whiz, and for some reason Dexter's, like, a nerd, so Dexter's also, like, always hanging around him. And anyway, they go there, and Apple's like, Humphrey, because in the first book, like, the book before this, Raven got Humphrey to hack into the mirror network so that she could spy on Raven, which Apple did confess that to Raven, so Raven knows about this. So they go to Humphrey, and they ask him, and he's like, they don't tell, like, Humphrey and Dexter what they're doing, but they're just like, we need to, like, hack into the school's network. And then Humphrey's like, yeah, I could help you. He's like, and then Apple's like, but we can't, like blow any of the locks. Like, we can't actually let anything out. We just need to, like, sneak in. Because, again, they don't want to actually unlock the mirror prison on accident. So then Humphrey's like, you know what, I'll dig a tunnel. And honestly, like, I'm not going to explain how it works, because if you want to know how it works, like, read the book. But I just want to say, like, the explanation of mirror technology in the book is pretty cool. Like, they kind of explain, like there's, like, magical beings in the web. Like, there's these mirror demons that they're trying to avoid. And basically what ends up happening is Humphrey creates a tunnel that they can use to hack into the school's network. And he sends it to, like, Raven's mirror in their room. So then Humphrey and Apple, like, thank you, Humphrey, and Dexter's also there helping too. They're like, thank you, and they go back. And then Humphrey also gave them this song to ward off, like, the mirror demons. So basically they're digging the tunnel, but the tunnel somehow opens up the mirror demons. So they have to play the song to ward them off, and they're able to get to the Evil Queen, and they get the Evil Queen to help them, and she, like, reads the spell, and then she's like, okay, but you need ingredients, but the mirror network won't let me tell you what the ingredients are, so she has to tell them a riddle. So the Evil Queen tells them, like, a riddle for, like, the 6 ingredients or whatever. I think it was 6. I don't know. But she tells them the ingredients, and then they go and start searching for them. But also in the meantime, the Evil Queen tells them, like, yeah, you can't talk to Maddie. Like, that might interrupt the spell. Like, you can't let her on to what you're doing. So, like, meanwhile, like, Maddie has 24 hours before she's banished. And while they're waiting for Maddie to be banished, Apple and Raven are, like, going on this crazy hunt to find all these different, like, things for, like, the spell, the irrefutable evidence spell to prove Maddie innocent, but they can't tell Maddie what they're doing. So they go and, like, get these will-o-the-wisps. They have to, like, go and find this, like, dragon skull. They have to get, like, Cupid's bow. Like, some of the things are easy. Like, the Cupid's bow, they just, like, ask Cupid, and she's like, sure. Like, she doesn't even, she's just like, okay, you need help. I'll help you, don't worry. So they get all this stuff, and they gather it back in their dorm room, and Raven, like, starts, like, working on, like, the spell, like, because now that Raven has all the ingredients, like, previously, like, Raven's mom could not tell her the ingredients, but now that Raven has the ingredients, her mom, like, can tell her, like, what to do with them. So Raven starts using the ingredients to practice, like, doing the spell. And meanwhile, like, for whatever reason, they need to get the treasury back to exactly how it was for the irrefutable evidence spell to work, because I guess it needs the place to be in the same condition. So Raven gathers everybody who was in the treasury before, who, like, broke in, and they repair everything. Like, they literally have to repair the glass, and they do this, it's actually really cool, by using the tip of Cupid's bow. Like, if you press the tip of Cupid's bow to something, it, like, heals it, or, like, reconnects it. So there was, like, glass that was shattered. They fix everything. Like, literally everybody helps. Then they get Headmaster Grimm Maddie, like everybody to come back, and they're like, you know, we're gonna prove Maddie innocent. So then Raven comes out, but here's the important point. Raven asks, like, she leaves like the mirror connected to her mom's mirror prison, because she's like, okay, if something happens, I might need to come back and ask my mom, and I don't know how to get this set up. Like Apple is established to be the person who's like smart at computer stuff. She's like, Apple's like, what if Apple can't help me? Like, I need to leave it up because Apple's the one who got this up. Like, what if I can't figure out how to do it again? So she leaves the mirror on, but she just like closes the door and goes down to the treasury where Apple has gathered everybody. And then Raven's like, okay, I'm gonna do the irrefutable evidence spell. They do the irrefutable evidence spell. Obviously, Maddie is innocent, and Headmaster Grimm can't expel or banish anybody, because it turns out, like, low-key, like, everybody was just messing around with stuff in the treasury, and everybody kept knocking stuff, and stuff kept bumping into the unicorn. It just, like, gets bumped by something, it falls off the shelf, everybody starts kicking around. Like, people don't know this, like, so, like, almost everybody's foot touched it. The funny thing is, like, the only person's foot who didn't touch it, besides, like, Apple and Raven, was, like, Maddie. Like, she literally just showed up there, she didn't even touch it. So then they can't, like, expel anybody because, like, everybody touched it. So then Maddie can stay. And again, this just exposes Headmaster Grimm is a huge hypocrite. Like, he was expelling Maddie for no reason. Like, he kind of knew this. But then once the irrefutable evidence spell happened, like, he couldn't deny it. So, yeah. But then the scary thing that happens is Raven and Apple get back to the room, and they realize, oh, wait, 2 of the ingredients were not used in the spell, and they left 2 of the ingredients in front of the mirror. These 2 ingredients were the will-o'-the-wisp tea that Apple had brewed, because they thought that was part of the spell. And then the other ingredient was an egg for Bob. You know how, like, Baba Yaga has, like, that chicken house? Well, it turns out it lays eggs. It can have little baby, like, houses. So like, the Evil Queen had told them that they needed this, like, egg and this will-o'-the-wisp tea, but they didn't actually use it in the spell. And then Apple and Raven were like, that's weird. And then Apple's like, wait, Raven, you didn't leave that in front of the mirror, did you? And they're like, oh, no, and they rush back up there, because it turns out, so will-o'-the-wisp tea, I guess, can be somehow used to, like, transport yourself between realms easier, because, like, it has something to do with, like, the will-o'-the-wisp, like, easily disappearing and reappearing. But anyway, they realized that the Evil Queen's plan was to, like, have the baby Baba Yaga house hatch, drink the will-o'-the-wisp tea, and then hop through the mirror and then get her out. And then they were like, oh no. They get there, they stop it, they have to, like, wrestle this little, like, baby house. They end up shattering the mirror, which is kind of confusing, because when I originally reread this book for the first time, this is actually my second time rereading it, but I just want to tell you guys, the first time I read this book was, like, in middle school, so of course I don't remember, but I reread it, like, a few summers ago for my Ever After High theories, and I just reread it again now. But I was kind of confused, because they do end up shattering the mirror, because they're trying to stop the Evil Queen from getting this, like, little house thing, like, house chicken thing to go into the mirror, and they end up shattering it. And I was like, doesn't that kind of disprove, like, what happens in Dragon Games? Because in Dragon Games, Apple shatters the mirror and the Evil Queen breaks out. Like, how does shattering the mirror in this book, like, stop her from breaking out? But I figured it out. The reason it worked is because the mirror they shattered was not the mirror that the Evil Queen was actually in. The mirror they shattered this time, when they were trying to stop the Evil Queen from breaking out, was just a vessel. It was connecting to the other mirror in Ever After High, so it was connecting to the mirror where the Evil Queen was actually trapped behind, like the mirror that would actually, you know, like, set her free if it was broken. But also, like, the Evil Queen even being able to, like, cast a little bit of magic, which she couldn't really cast much magic. She was just trying to get the, she was, like, kind of, like, singing, or, like, saying stuff to try to get the little, like, baby house to jump through the mirror. Just her being able to even have any sort of influence like that just shows that she was already gaining some sort of power back, which we already covered in part 0 a little bit of the retelling, so I'm not going to get into that, but, like, yeah, the Evil Queen was slowly gaining power, slowly trying to figure out ways to break out. And also, like, Loki, Apple, and Raven tunneling through the school's security system, and the mirror network, Loki, you know, might have also weakened her prison a little bit, even though she didn't break out in that moment. But they did shatter the mirror, and again, I think the reason she didn't break out was because that mirror was not the actual mirror that was holding her. It was just connected, so that's why it just stopped the connection. It didn't let her out or anything. But then their room was kind of wrecked from trying to wrestle this little house chicken thing. But then everybody who helped, you know, clean up the treasury came and helped them clean up the room, and they were able to, like, repair stuff with, like, Cupid's arrow tip. The only thing they did not repair was the mirror, because Raven was like, we're not risking that, we're not repairing that mirror. And then they did return the little baby house back to Baba Yaga's, like, big house, whatever. And that's kind of everything that happens in this book, but there is more tea that I have to tell you. for this episode after the book. So stuff that we find out after the book, I did not realize till working on this retelling. Poppy originally did not go to Ever After High. She originally went to beauty school. And the reason for this is something that I did not realize before. People who do not have destinies are not supposed to go to Ever After High. So, like, I kind of got, like, hints of this in my previous part. I might have mentioned it a little because in the previous part of my Ever After High retelling, part 1, I read Once Upon a Time, which, like I said earlier, is kind of like the prequel book. Actually, I don't know if I said that earlier, but I said it in the previous part. I said it in part 1. Once Upon a Time is kind of a book that takes place before this. It's like a prequel book, but it contains short stories from the different characters' point of view of like what happens to them the day before school starts. And in Cedar's story, she meets like these 2 guys on the beach who are like, oh my gosh, they're the daughter of Pinocchio. And they talk about how they also like one time saw Apple White. And that kind of establishes that people who go to Ever After High are kind of just like well known in general because people know them as these fairy tale book characters. So that kind of establishes that people who don't go to Ever After High do go somewhere else. For example, like Poppy was going to beauty school to learn how to be a hairstylist, which I mean, she is a hairstylist. But it kind of establishes that the only people who go to Ever After High are the people who have roles and stories. Now, it's not just like the main characters, because, you know, obviously, like, Apple is the main character of her story, but theoretically, Raven's supposed to be the queen. She's not a main character, she's the villain. So, like, people who go to Ever After High, you don't have to be, like, the main character, but you have to be a character that at least plays enough of a role in a story for there to be, like, something for you to study, for it to be, like, for you to have a destiny. You know, like, if you're, like, unnamed background character number 3 in, like, Beauty and the Beast, like, no, you're not, like, you don't have to do anything. Like, but, like, let's say, like, I don't know, you're the Beast. Like, yeah, then you have to go to Ever After High. Anyway. So this whole point about Poppy and Holly is basically, in the webisode, Poppy is a Roy Bell, I realized in that episode, that is actually the episode where she finally transfers from beauty school to Ever After High and is actually allowed in. Now, previously I said people without destinies are not allowed in. So why was she finally allowed in? Well, for my research for this video, I actually did read Poppy and Holly's diaries. And I found out that it was Holly. Holly was like, I don't care that you don't have a destiny, Poppy. I'm going to get you into Ever After High. We got to do this together. Like, we're twins. We're besties. We got to do this. And basically, Holly is trying to figure out any way to convince Headmaster Grimm to let Poppy in. And especially after Legacy Day, she's like, Headmaster Grimm, like, people don't want to follow their destinies. People are doing whatever they want anyway. Like, why can't we just let Poppy in? And Headmaster Grimm's like, no, it's only for people with destinies. And then Holly is in the library one day. And she, like, hears a knock on the floor. And she's like, what? And then she looks down at the floor and she sees this book. And this book is called The Origin of Ever After High by M. Grimm and G. Grimm. Guess who the G. Grimm is? Giles Grimm. Also, at this point, people don't necessarily know that Giles Grimm is locked in the basement. Like, Holly makes a remark that she knows that Giles Grimm is Headmaster Grimm's brother who used to be the librarian. But, like, the only people who really know he's in the basement at this point are Maddie and Raven. Like, this is before Throne Coming. So Holly takes this book to Headmaster Grimm and she's like, actually, in this book, The Origin of Ever After High, it says, like, anybody who has a parent who is, like, from a legacy story could go to Ever After High. So technically, because, like, Rapunzel is both mine and Poppy's mom, like, we could both come here. And then Headmaster Grimm's he's like, give me that book. Fine, Poppy can come here. Like, don't tell anybody about this. So yeah, that's how Poppy is allowed to go in. And this is part of the reason why I say Headmaster Grimm is a hypocrite, because guess what? He allowed Darling into the school. I know Darling is not shown in the show, but in the books and everything else, Darling is there from day one, from the beginning. Like, she's literally has her own section in the prequel book. Anyway, so Darling did not know her destiny, and when she went to Ever After High, Headmaster Grimm was like, oh, don't worry, like, you'll get some sort of damsel in distress destiny, you'll find out on Legacy Day. Of course, Darling never found out because Legacy Day was canceled before she could go up there, and it was a fake storybook of legends anyway, so whatever destiny she was gonna get, like, Headmaster Grimm just made it up anyway, which honestly, at this point, I don't even know if that matters that much, because I am of the team that Headmaster Grimm was the one who made the original storybook of legends, and I don't think he could necessarily prescribe each person's destiny like that, but I do think he had some sort of control over it. But because he didn't have the original storybook of legends anymore, I do think in the fake storybook of legends he was just kind of like literally writing whatever he wanted. So obviously, like, Darling did not sign, but if she would have signed, she would have seen like just some destiny that he made up for her. And I did see somebody in my TikTok comment section saying that, oh, maybe she was supposed to be the prince from Princess and the Frog, which actually makes sense, because if you think about it, like, Hopper Croakington was probably like the son of the previous frog princess and prince. And so he would need like a girl to marry to kiss him. You know, I know what you guys are gonna say. I know what you guys are gonna say. This is before Dragon Games. This is before we dismantled stereotypical gender roles of like the heterosexual romance thing. So yeah, like it would have probably been a girl. And it probably would have been Darling. So maybe that's true. Maybe that was the destiny Headmaster Grimm had planned for her. But again, Darling was not the daughter of the frog prince or princess. She was the daughter of the Charmings, and Headmaster Grimm like kind of just assigned her to this destiny. So what am I saying here? Headmaster Grimm's a hypocrite. He obviously favors the Charming family. He could have also made up a destiny for Poppy. He just didn't want to. He just doesn't care that much. And I do think like he shows obvious favoritism towards Snow White. Like he shows obvious favoritism towards Snow White, Applewhite, and the Snow White story, and trying to get Raven to be evil because it's so important to have a villain for that story, even though he did not really, like I said this before, he did not really care when he banished Maddie to Wonderland. He did not care about messing up the Wonderland story. He did not care about trying to heal Wonderland from the curse so that the Wonderland characters could find their destiny. He is a hypocrite. And he could have also made up some random damsel in distress destiny for Poppy. He didn't. Because, guess what? He's trying to impress the Charming family. He cares about the Charming family clearly more than the Rapunzel family, even though I do know in general he favors royals, but, like, it seems for whatever reason he favors the Charming family more, and it may have something to do with the fact that at this point, everybody thought Apple was destined to marry Daring, who was from that same Charming family, and I think that has something to do with the favoritism. Anyway, obvious favoritism from Milton Grimm. It also shows that at some point in time, when Ever After High first opened, the rules were different, and again, I think this is because Ever After High, I talked about this in part 1, was founded in 1812, and I think before Ever After High was founded, I think everybody in the fairy tale realm just kind of did whatever they want, more similar to Monster High, because again, Ever After High is in the same universe as Monster High. The difference between, like, kind of the scary tale realm, which is where Monster High is from, is that in Monster High, the kids, yes, are sons and daughters of famous characters from scary stories like Dracula, Frankenstein, but they are not destined to follow the same path as their parents. The difference in Ever After High is Headmaster Grimm kind of wants them to keep repeating the same stories. And my theory that he wants them to keep repeating the same stories because he likes the Brothers Grimm versions of the stories and he wants them to be famous. And then, of course, some of the other stories, like the Wonderland stories, are not Brothers Grimm. But, you know, he can't just say, oh, I don't care about you guys, I care about you guys. Then all the Brothers Grimm story characters would be like, why do we have to follow the same story but the Wonderland characters don't? So then Headmaster Grimm basically just made everybody in the fairy tale realm follow the same story so that his stories, specifically stories that he favors like Snow White, could stay in publication in the real world and stay popular because he cares about that fame. So what I'm trying to say is 200 years ago when Ever After High was founded, like everybody who went there was just the sons and daughters of what the current famous story fairy tale characters were. So at that time, yes, anybody who was a son or a daughter of a legacy story could go to Ever After High, but that was because at the time, that was when Ever After High was being established. That was the first generation of people who went to Ever After High was the first generation where the stories were being repeated. So then after that, it was only like the people that he wanted to repeat the same story. So that is why like the rules changed. And that is why that book was like hidden. I hope that makes sense. So now we're getting into more of like the webisode. So we kind of talked about Poppy's stuff and her webisode of her being a Roybell. Also, I didn't even really mention the fact about her being a Roybell. I have said this before, I don't really think the whole Roybell thing makes sense because I'm like, if you're a royal who doesn't want to follow their destiny or who wants to just like allow people who don't want to follow their destiny to follow your own path, you're just a rebel. Like that's what Darling is. Like Darling is a royal and she wants to follow her own destiny. She wants other people to be able to follow their own destiny and not do like what Headmaster Grimm says. So she's a rebel. Similarly, like Cedar is a commoner. Cedar does want to follow her destiny. She does want to, you know, grow up to be a real girl and like follow the Pinocchio destiny so that she can be turned into a real girl and not be Wood forever. But at the same time, she also wants Raven to not have to follow her destiny, so she's a rebel. So what I'm trying to say is Poppy, in my opinion of the definition, is just a rebel because she believes people can do whatever they want and not have to follow the same destiny. But I get why they called her a Roybell. Like, they're trying to, like, connect the fact that she is royal. But she, like, even if she was royal, she couldn't necessarily be royal because she doesn't even have a destiny to follow. So, I don't know. The whole Roybell term is just confusing to me in general. I get why she calls herself that because she wants to kind of, like, claim her royal identity and then also her rebel identity, but in my opinion, she's just a rebel. But anyway, that's my opinion on the whole Roybell thing. Some other things I want to mention, I'm not mentioning every single webisode here, but if you want to know, I'll link the order of the webisodes down below. So like I have this link to this playlist that was made by Athena XOX on Tumblr, and it basically has all the Ever After High webisodes in order, so you can go check that. So then the next thing I want to talk about is Blondie's Just Right. Now this is one of the webisodes, and in this webisode, Blondie is doing like a segment in kind of like her mirror cast where she is proving that school legends are real. But basically every time she tries to prove a school legend is real, it doesn't actually turn out to be real. So then Headmaster Grimm keeps having to follow her around and make it look real. So for example, one of the legends was that giants can't dance. So she's getting a clip of Tiny, like the giant, dancing. And then he's doing a good job dancing, and Headmaster Grimm's like, no. So then Headmaster Grimm has to like find some way to trick Tiny and knock him over so it looks like he's a bad dancer. And again, Headmaster Grimm, you're a hypocrite. Like, Headmaster Grimm wanted Blondie to do this segment to show, you know, the school legends are true. So like the school legends, our destinies are true. We should follow them. But literally every single school legend Blondie tried to prove was not correct, like did not work. And the only reason it worked was because Headmaster Grimm kept following her around and messing with it. Hypocrite. Then the only other webisode I want to mention for this part of the retelling is the webisode called Mirror Net Down, because it shows how the mirror net works, and it also shows the computer lab where Dexter and Humphrey hang out that is mentioned in this book, The Unfairest of Them All. But yeah, plot-wise, that is basically all we are covering for this video. But wait, if you have made it this far in the video, I do have more to tell you. But first, make sure to go down below and leave me a nice little like and a comment, because it really helps to support the channel. If you are not sure what to comment, please comment a bear emoji for Blondie Locks to show me you have made it this far in the video. But wait, what is that Blondie Locks is wearing? It looks like a very cute Ever After High court dress, but I don't remember ever seeing this dress sold on a doll. Well, guess what? It's because I handmade it and also designed it myself. So this dress is currently available on my Etsy shop, which is also linked down below. If you guys didn't know, I currently have a doll clothing line out on my Etsy shop that is called Midsummer Florals, and they do fit several different doll types, but they do fit Ever After High. This is the size small. We also have a size large, which fits some other doll types. But yeah, if you are a doll collector and looking for some more clothing items to spice up your doll's wardrobe, I would definitely recommend checking out the link to my Etsy shop, which is linked below, and then you can see what I have. I am going to be releasing a new line soon with more Ever After High inspired clothing, since a lot of you guys requested clothing specifically made for Ever After High dolls in the Ever After High style. I also am open for commissions, so I have my business email linked below, and if you are looking for like a specific clothing piece for like a custom doll or maybe like a doll that's based on an OC, you can commission me. Just email me down below with my inquiry. An example of a commission that I've done before is somebody wanted a specific Taylor Swift dress from the Era store for their Barbie, and they DM me. You can also DM me like on TikTok or Instagram if you're interested. They DM me on TikTok, and I was able to make that for them. But yeah, definitely check it out, and if you specifically buy this dress, you can literally brag to your friends and be like, hey, the dress that I have for my Ever After High doll was featured in a Fairy Tale Vibes video. Yeah. Anyway, what I wanted to tell you guys is that in today's video, we basically covered everything that happened in The Unfairest of Them All and some of the webisodes that took place around the same time as The Unfairest of Them All. And then in the next episode of the Ever After High Retelling series, which will be episode 3, we will be covering, funnily enough, the third Shannon Hale book, which is called A Wonderlandful World. And then we will also most likely be covering the first Suzanne Selfer's Ever After High book, which is called Next Top Villain, because that is what takes place after Wonderlandful World. The weird thing is the next major thing that happens, like webisodes / specials wise in Ever After High is True Hearts Day, which is not till the beginning of the spring semester, but we still kind of have to finish out the fall semester. And I think there are also, like, after Next Top Villain, there are at least 2 more Suzanne Selfer books that take place during the fall semester. So what I'm trying to say here is for the next couple of episodes of the Ever After High Retelling series, we'll be covering a lot of stuff from the books, and then after that, we will be covering a lot of stuff from, like, the webisodes and specials, because think about it, then after True Hearts Day, we have Throne coming, we have Spring Unsprung, we have Way to Wonderland, we have Dragon Games, and Epic Winter all during the same spring semester. So yeah, the Ever After High timeline with the books and the show is kind of whack. It's kind of like all books mainly during the fall semester, and then like a million specials during the spring semester. So yeah, and I also just want to give a special shout out to Athena XOX on Tumblr. Thank you so much for helping me figure out this timeline, because yeah, that is kind of whack, because we literally get like hardly any lore from the fall semester in the webisodes. Like, if you want to get the lore from the fall semester, you have to read the books, which is why I am doing, you know, this retelling to give you guys who don't read the books, you know, the info. So anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. I will also have my Instagram and TikTok linked down below. Make sure to check those out, especially my Instagram, because surprisingly, like, not that many of you follow me on my Instagram. Like, people who follow me on TikTok, whenever they go to my Instagram, they're shocked because they're like, you have way less followers here. And I'm like, yeah. So go support your girl on Instagram. Also go check out my TikTok if you want more Ever After High lore. But yeah, I am trying to post more on my Instagram, so go follow me there so I'll have motivation to post. Anyway, bye guys. Love you guys.